Hello and welcome to the How to Carnivore podcast. I'm your host, Simon Lewis, and you're tuning into the Plant-Free MD series with Dr. Anthony Chaffee. Dr. Chaffee is a surgeon, nutritional researcher, and former pro rugby player. He's been strict carnivore for 3 years and an on and off carnivore for more than 20. Dr. Chaffee looks and feels like a real-life superhero. If losing fat, building muscle, finding focus, and getting the most out of life is important to you, you're going to love the Plant-Free MD series.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivorebar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is just eat meat, and that's what you should do. But if you're hiking or road tripping or stuck at work and you want something nutritious that is just meat, fat, and possibly salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. I like this product not only because it is pure meat, but also because I really want the carnivore market to thrive as well. The more we support meat-only products, the more people will make meat-only products, and this will bring this into the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to check out, then take a look and use my discount code HTC to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys.
So Asha, I've been following you for a while on Instagram. I don't know how I got into. I always just remember seeing those like the shots of food that you post where you always do like the brisket fried in tallow, and then you're talking about, I don't know, basically being jacked and healthy at a slightly older age, and it always really got my attention. How old are you?
49.
49. Yeah, cool. And where are you based?
I'm in Las Vegas.
Oh, Las Vegas. Nice.
Yeah.
Many other carnivores in Vegas?
There are a few. Yeah, I've run into a few on Instagram, and they're actually having a meetup next month. So that'll be interesting. I attended one of those probably about 3 years ago with about, I want to say like 3 or 4 other people. But yeah, this meetup's supposed to 10, 15 people there. So that should be fun.
Yeah, that'd be good. So what got you into carnivore? How did this all start?
So before I went carnivore, I've been carnivore for 4 years. Before I went carnivore, I was keto for quite some time, and then paleo before that. And so I had been, it's been about 10 years since I've really changed up my diet and gotten really interested in nutrition. Though I always had an interest in nutrition. In high school, I was on the wrestling team. So we had to make weight every week. So I was cutting weight every week. And so, I was cognizant of what I was eating. And I also, my teammates, my friends and I would lift weights, work out. Back in the day, it was, all about carb loading and getting in as many carbs as possible to fuel your gains and your growth. But yeah, I was interested in nutrition back then. And then it kind of, I kind of lost interest in it until I hit my mid 30s and started experiencing health issues, health problems, which were kind of surprising and didn't expect to encounter. And so eventually, after a number of years, stumbled upon the idea that maybe diet and nutrition has something to do with how I'm feeling and functioning, both mentally and physically. And so that's kind of what ignited the spark. And then, it just grew and grew. And so spent the past 10 years studying about nutrition, reading a lot about it, practicing it in my work, working with clients. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
So 10 years ago, and it sort of went like paleo, keto, carnivore. Was that kind of how it's transitioned? Yeah. I think that's pretty common, right?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it's pretty common. And I think like many other people who are carnivore or went carnivore. So, I mean, I felt really good on keto, and, I didn't think I could feel much better than how I felt at the time. I mean, physically, mentally, workout wise and so forth. And so I was pretty happy. And then I kept hearing about or reading about people who had been keto and then went carnivore, tried this crazy carnivore diet, and said they felt 10 times better than they did when they were keto. And I was like, how can that be possible? And so, yeah, I heard that enough times. And And then I decided, okay, well, let me, I'm curious and I like to, try things out and test things out. So let me try it on myself. So yeah, I said, I'll try it for a month and see how it goes and then go from there. And that's so it's been 4 years so far.
Yeah. When you were doing keto, were you obviously you were eating more than just meat? Were you going for like the keto snacks, or what was kind of the stuff outside of carnivore you were eating?
Yeah, so when I was keto, I was really clean. I didn't eat like keto processed snacks and junk foods and packaged foods. It was basically what I ate was for each meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, a salad, which was like greens, avocado, tomatoes, maybe some, roasted broccoli, cauliflower, and then a protein on top. So if it was breakfast, I'd have some eggs on it with some cheese. If it was lunch or dinner, I'd have some chicken or fish or maybe some beef, and put some olive oil and some lemon juice on it, maybe some feta cheese, stuff like that. So that's pretty much how I ate when I was keto. Pretty clean. No fruit, no sweets, no sweeteners. And again, I felt really good. I thought, I felt the best I could feel that it was possible to feel, but yeah, that wasn't the case. Which I found out when I went carnivore.
Yeah. So it was low sugar, and it was pretty kind of like sort of basic veggies like salad and maybe a bit of broccoli. But it wasn't that high fat. Whereas now it seems like when I see those shots of you eating the brisket and like you're cooking it in the tallow and the tallow just stays in the pan, like I feel like you're much higher fat now. Would that be right?
Oh, I ate very high fat. Yeah. I would say, fat's probably 80% of my caloric intake, protein being, the remaining 20%. And I just found that I feel the best. I function the best. I just feel very, very good and satiated when I eat high fat. Like I can't really eat a ribeye steak just by itself. That's not fatty enough for me.
Even like quite a fatty ribeye, because we think ribeye might be 60 to 70% of calories coming from fat if you eat a ribeye. What do you think?
Probably, yeah. But so my typical meal, the one that you see on Instagram with the shredded brisket fried with pieces of fat and everything, that's probably about 10 to 12 ounces. I eat, the whole meal is 10 to 12 ounces, and I am 100% totally satiated. And and so I have that for breakfast before I leave for work. Wow. And I'm totally satiated and satisfied until I get home from work at 5 or 6 or 7. And then I have another 10 or 12 ounce meal, something very similar, and I'm good for the next morning. So 10 to 12 ounces per meal. When I'm eating high fat, I can eat a 20 ounce ribeye or a 22 ounce ribeye, not feel that very satisfying feeling of satiety. Still, like my stomach physically feels full, but I don't feel satiated, and I don't feel as good as I do when I eat a lot of fat. And then I get hungry, like, 3 hours afterwards. I get hungry. Like if I'll be at a restaurant and have a ribeye steak at 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening, we get home and like, I need to eat something else. Like I need to eat some fat or something else. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So for those down under, we're talking about a 300 gram meal, which is like 10 or 11 ounces. Asher, are you adding a lot of fat to because am I right in saying it's like chuck steak or brisket that you normally go for?
Yeah, most of my go-to meats are like briskets, short ribs, sometimes chuck roast. Those are the main things that I eat. And then I also, if it's like chuck roast or if it's a steak or if it's ground beef, so I buy a lot of fat trimmings and I'll fry them up, crisp them up, and I'll eat those with, a good like handful or so with whatever meat I'm eating, if it's too lean. But typically a nice fatty brisket with, where the butchers leave on a lot of the fat, or the short ribs where the butchers are leaving on the fat and not cutting, because some places they'll cut, they'll trim off a lot of the fat. And so that's not enough for me. But if it's a good fatty, a couple pieces of short ribs, some brisket, I don't need to add additional fat to that. But most other cuts I have to add like fat trimmings and or like extra brisket fat that I have. I'll have to add to that.
Mm. How do you feel when you go like higher protein? So if you were to just say you're doing the ribeyes, you said that you're hungry more often. Does it affect your body composition, and does it affect your energy? I'm curious to hear what you think.
Well, I haven't done it long term just because when I have eaten a higher protein, lower fat meal, I just don't feel very good afterwards and don't feel that extreme satiety.
Yeah, right.
And so I don't want to eat, high protein, low fat again. So I'll make an effort to eat a high fat meal. And it's interesting because I look and I see, and not everybody agrees with me, and some people like eating high protein and lower fat. I don't think that's optimal though. I think optimally we need to be eating a lot of fat. I mean, I think our endocrine system needs a lot of fat. And just like how I feel when I'm eating a lot of fat versus eating high protein, it just doesn't compare, and it's very for me unsatisfying to eat a lower fat meal. And so I see people on Instagram posting their steaks or their, the most interesting thing is when people post like, oh, these are the 3 ground beef patties that I had for lunch today. I'm like, oh my gosh, how are they able to just eat those like dry ground beef patties with no extra fat? And I'd be miserable if I had to eat that. But a lot of people like it, and a lot of people swear by it, so
Yeah.
it's interesting. But for me, yeah, I couldn't do a couple burger patties. I couldn't do like a steak and be satiated afterwards.
Very interesting. Yeah, because I do the burger patties sometimes, and it's when like I'm on the go and I'll go to a McDonald's and I'll just get the Angus beef burger patties. I'll get 3 of them, and yeah, they are lean, and I really don't feel that great after them. And I have a feeling that they kind of make me put on weight, and it's like muscle, but also a bit of fat, because I really am just consuming so much meat. And then when I have them at lunch, and then it comes to dinner, I'm hungry again. And I do feel a bit fatigued after. So I'm definitely with you on this. And I think like when Dr. Chaffee and I coach people, we encourage people to go for 70% of calories from fat. And in terms of, I think broadly speaking, what we should all be going for is like health and happiness on carnivore. And I think calories somewhere around there or even higher, like 80% from fat, like what you're doing. We do see a lot of people hit that kind of like, I feel really great and I'm really happy. And it kind of seems like a bit of the sweet spot. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And it's interesting also from a vantage point of fitness and body composition, where so many people think, oh, if you eat that much fat, like if I eat that much fat, I'm going to get fat, I'm going to gain body fat. And it doesn't. And I've heard some people will try like, oh, I tried high fat and I gained like 3 pounds. And when they say that, I don't think they were truly eating high fat. I think they added a little bit more fat than they were eating typically, and they probably kept their high protein level the same.
Yeah.
So they were consuming more calories and higher quantities of food, and then gained a few pounds. Whereas when you eat high fat, like 70 or 80% of your calories, you can't eat the same quantity of food. Like you're going to be satiated much quicker. Like for me, I eat half the amount of my high fat meals that I do if I eat a ribeye, which again, I don't consider a ribeye to be high fat. So I can eat 20-ounce ribeye, or I can eat 10 ounces of fatty brisket with brisket fat pieces or fatty short ribs. So, and that's really where I think where that impacts your body composition, because your overall caloric intake is probably a little bit lower when you're eating high fat. You don't need to eat as much food in terms of quantities, and you're eating, in my opinion, the right amount, the correct amount of protein. You're not eating too much protein, so your body's not converting that excess protein into glucose and then storing it as body fat. And like for me, the more I've dropped my carbohydrate intake and increased my fat intake, the leaner and stronger and I've become. and I'm pretty lean. You can see pictures on my Instagram, and
super lean.
yeah. And I'm 49. I'm going to be 50 and later this year. And I don't go crazy in the gym. I don't do any cardio. I lift weights for about an hour, 3 or 4 times a week. Basic compound push-pull weightlifting exercises, and that's it. And I don't do ab workouts. Again, I have no cardio, no nothing. And I'm not trying to lean out. I'm not trying to, I don't do bulking or cutting. I just eat to satiety. I eat high-fat carnivore to satiety, and my body composition is better than it's ever been without me making an effort. So it's really, when you're eating correctly, it's effortless, I think, to for your body composition to optimize and to stay at an optimal level. Like, I haven't gained weight, like some people will, gain a few pounds, lose a few pounds. That hasn't happened. Like, I stay like very consistent at a very consistent weight and body fat amount. And, as I'm, building muscle. And so it works really well. It sounds really counterintuitive, eat 80% of your calories is fat. Like, that doesn't sound like the optimal way to optimize your body composition. But for me and for a lot of other people, it works very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's kind of like expert level carnivore, really. And that's where a lot of people kind of end up, because there's a lot of experimentation at the start. People are experimenting with basically just eating a heap of meat and like, making strange meals that look like, like carnivore pizza and like carnivore burritos or something like that. Whereas then eventually you start to think, okay, well, what do I actually feel best on? And, exactly what you're doing with the high fat. And I mean, it sounds like, am I right in saying that you're just on ruminants, like 90% beef or something like that?
Probably more than that. Lately, the past several months, it's been only beef and lamb. So yeah. And hey, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you? Sorry, I'm late. Just got caught up with a couple of patients.
Not a problem.
Yeah, we've just been getting into it, talking about how Asher basically does carnivore. He's been carnivore for 4 years. That's right, isn't it, Asher?
Yeah.
And went sort of like paleo, keto, carnivore, as so many people do. And I was just calling him expert level carnivore because he does 80% of his calories from fat, and 95% of what he eats is beef.
Nice.
So it's pretty, it's pretty expert level. And what actually you're eating twice a day?
Twice a day, yeah. Twice a day. Like I said, each meal is about 10 to 12 ounces. So a total of, 20, 24 ounces of food a day, very high fat and pretty much only beef, a little bit of lamb every once in a while. But yeah, that's how it's been for a while. And, of course, when I started carnivore, it was much different. I was eating, a much wider variety of different types of foods, different types of meats and dairy and eggs. And that slowly, as time went on, became more and more narrow. The types of foods that I was eating, not because I was trying to do anything. It was just, what I try and do is be intuitive and listen to my body and listen to what my body's asking for. And just as time went on, my body was asking for a much more narrow, fewer types of different types of foods, and which is basically beef and lamb. And so the other stuff kind of dropped off along the way. And I think it's because ruminants, beef and lamb, are most nutrient dense for humans and are the optimal food for humans. And so I think that's why a lot of us gravitate towards eating beef and lamb, predominantly or mostly. So it seems like that type of evolution or progression is fairly common amongst longer term carnivores.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly found the same thing myself. I've always liked beef and steak, and that was always my go-to anyway. But then when I was doing it for long enough, and I had, bacon or eggs or pork or chicken or whatever, I still felt great, but I didn't feel as just amazing as on beef. And so I just naturally, that was where my instinct said, was just like, just to stick with beef.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much what happened to me. Like I just, pork didn't feel too good after eating pork. Chicken, others, like other things, just like, and you just don't feel as optimal and as good as you do when you eat, a good meal of just beef. And yeah, so like exact same thing with me.
Yeah.
So Asha, I suppose carnivore from here on in. I mean, you feel like you've kind of like nailed it at 49. You're enjoying the lifestyle. You're just going to keep it going.
I mean, yeah, my opinion has always been, and outlook has always been like, I'm going to do nutrition wise and lifestyle wise what helps me optimize how I'm feeling and my health. And I'm not married to any certain way of doing things, eating or exercising or whatever. If I stop feeling this good, or I stop feeling optimally eating carnivore, then yeah, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't try something else. But it just hasn't happened yet. Like I continue to feel amazing. And like I said earlier, when I was keto, I felt really good. And I thought, wow, this is like as good as I'm going to feel. This is great. And then I, kept hearing and reading about people who had been keto and then went carnivore, tried carnivore, and felt 10 times better than they did when they were keto. And I thought, how can that be possible? Like, how can I feel better than I feel now? And so finally, after hearing, more and more people talk about it and write about it, I thought, okay, I got to, give this a shot myself and see if there's, anything to all these stories that these people are telling. And yeah, I did that. And I said, I'll try it for a month and see how it goes. And lo and behold, I also felt 10 times better. And as the months progressed, kept feeling better and better, to where, yeah, there's no comparison to how, to how I feel as a strict carnivore to how I felt as, eating very clean keto. Like, it's just so much better. So as long as I continue to feel this good and to function this well and to have this much energy and strength and no reason why I'm not going to continue with carnivore. And especially since I don't, like Anthony was saying, I don't crave, just like he doesn't crave any other types of meat or any other foods. Like I don't either. I certainly don't crave any plants, vegetables, fruits, sweets, anything like that. And I mean, I don't even crave, like now I don't even crave like fish, chicken, pork, stuff like that. I don't really crave that. And I mean, I'll eat it. I won't eat plants, but I'll eat, pork, or I'll eat fish or whatever if I have no other options or if it's around. But I don't crave it, and I certainly don't feel like eating that. What I feel like eating all the time, every day, every time I eat, is beef.
Who's like, what information were you reading or were you watching when you were getting into carnivore? What was kind of like the big launching point for you?
Well, I remember one of the things was one of Sean Baker's videos or interviews. I don't remember if it was on Joe Rogan or some of the other things. And Michaela Peterson, I heard her story, and there were a few other people online that, I heard about their accounts of when they, them going carnivore and feeling so much better and having resolved, a number of health concerns or health problems. So it was, I was hearing from those, but I remember hearing from, Sean Baker, and some other people. And just, after a bit of time, my curiosity was piqued. Like, how can they feel, or how's it possible for me to feel so much better than I feel now on keto? So yeah, I eventually decided to give it a shot. And it's interesting because, so this is back in like mid-December when I said 4 years ago, when I said, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it for 30 days. I'm going to do it, New Year's, January 1st. I'm going to start off, I'm going to do the month of January. I'm going to do carnivore. And so for those last 2 weeks of December, I was like freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to only eat meat and like no vegetables, nothing else for a whole month? Like, and then so that I tell myself, whatever, big deal. Like, no, if I get sick of it after a couple of days or after a week or two, whatever, I'll just go back to eating keto, and not a big deal. But I remember like being kind of distressed and like thinking, how am I going to do this? psychologically it seemed very difficult to do. But yeah, once you do it, once you get through those first that first week or two, that adaptation period where you're not feeling so hot, then oh yeah, then you get it. Then you get why people go carnivore and why they stay carnivore.
Yeah. And so since then, like what about like your family and friends and things like that? Have they sort of come around to this, or what are their thoughts on it?
Yeah, so of course, most of my family and friends think I'm totally nuts. They got past the thing. Yeah, like in the beginning, my wife was freaked out. Oh my God, you're gonna have a heart attack. You need to get your cholesterol checked and this and that. And then she came around, and I eventually got blood work done. Several months later, and so she kind of calmed down. But I imagine most people. Well, so most people probably think I'm crazy, but then it's hard for them to argue with the fact that I'm like in way better shape than any of them are. And I mean, you can tell I'm thriving. You can tell I feel great. I don't have any health issues or health problems. People my age, I'm 49. A lot of my friends and people are, have all kinds of health problems, or on, taking testosterone and, other, like, they're not in very good shape physically. And so I think there's kind of like, well, maybe that, maybe there's something there. But, for people who are eating a standard Western diet, it's just so extreme and so far out there to where I'm sure, none of them would consider it. Some have talked about it, like, oh, maybe I'll try. I had a friend who tried it for about 6 months, felt great, and then, fell back into, eating some carbs and some stuff over the weekends. What's interesting is that my daughter's boyfriends, so I have a 21-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old daughter, and so their boyfriends, they're into going to the gym and lifting and drinking their pre-workouts and their post-workouts and all that. And so they see my Instagram, like, oh dude, you're jacked and this and that. And so I'm telling them about carnivore, so they want to try it. So they're talking about trying it, another month or two. And so I think they kind of get it. And that's the thing. If I wasn't in optimal health, if I wasn't in really good shape for my age, and really strong and athletic, maybe people be like, what's he talking about? Like, it hasn't really done anything to him. But you can't argue. It's hard to argue with with reality. So
yeah, and that's the thing. It's you can certainly get in good shape eating garbage. I think a lot of us have at some time or another. But it's a hell of a lot easier to stay in good shape, get in good shape, and stay in good shape like this. I've never had to really try to stay lean and to keep most of my musculature. Like, I don't get much time to work out. When I do, I get great results. But when I don't, I just maintain a low body fat percentage, and I maintain most of my muscle mass. And that's never been the case, even when I was a teenager or in my early 20s. In my early 20s, I was carnivore, so that was very easy. But mid to late 20s, and after I sort of stopped, before and after I was doing that, if I wasn't working out like crazy, I would be putting on weight and not being in good shape. Now I'm just effortlessly in good shape all the time. And and so I think that's very significant as well, because people can damage their health and hurt themselves and work really hard and do whatever to get low body fat percentage. And we see athletes and bodybuilders and things like that do pretty extreme things in order to get a certain look or a certain physique or whatever. But I mean, they're really working against themselves, whereas this is just effortless. It just works with you. You're always going to be sort of running optimally. And so when you do put in work, you get a lot more out of it and you maintain it. So I think that's that effortless ability to maintain good physique and conditioning, I think speaks for itself.
To sort of to add to that, I think as we get older, the sort of difference between somebody who's carnivore and someone who's eating a SAD diet becomes more stark. Do you know what I mean? Like, Asher, like, you're a bit older than I am. In your age group, you would just look vastly different, so much leaner, so much healthier, better skin, everything like that than the average person your age. And, you can imagine when you're 60 or when you're 70, the sort of difference, it'll start to kind of become more and more extreme, really.
Yeah. And what's interesting also is, yeah. And I mean, there's some people who are naturally gifted, who have like naturally good genes, and they're going to be, they're going to have a great physique regardless of how they eat. And it's interesting because, I kind of noticed there's some, influencers online and who are young also, who are young and they have great genes and they're not, eating optimally. They're not eating well. And they're saying, yeah, look, I'm in good shape, do what I'm doing. And to where like, okay, well, the average person isn't going to be able to achieve their physique eating how they're eating. Like they were just gifted with a great physique. But a lot of us, so for me, I didn't always have a great physique. Like all throughout my 20s and 30s and early 40s, I had an average, like very unimpressive, skinny fat physique, skinny arms, skinny body, little, like no ab definition, no chest muscles. Like you couldn't tell. And I was working out like crazy. Like Anthony said, he was working out like crazy and didn't have much to show for it. Same thing when I was eating. And I was eating like a quote unquote healthy Mediterranean diet at the time.
Yeah.
And I was working out usually about five days a week, hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours each workout. So I was like, killing myself in the gym and had nothing to show for it. And this is all throughout my 20s, 30s and early 40s. And yeah, once I went keto and then carnivore, like my body, like effortlessly just, I leaned out, my muscles grew, my body composition just really improved and optimized. And I work out less now, less frequently. So I spend about an hour for each workout in the gym. Basic push-pull compound movements, compound exercises. I never work out more than 3 or 4 days a week. So, which is much less than what I was doing in my 20s and 30s. And my physique now at age 49 is 10 times better than it was when I was, when I was in my 20s. So it is interesting. And, I have, young guys in their 20s and so forth that see me in the gym, like, dude, what do you do? What's your workout routine? I'm like, I eat meat and I don't eat any plants. And because it really, that really makes a difference. And a lot of folks, and I was the same way when I was their age, but a lot of people don't realize that 80% of the formula is what you're doing in the kitchen, and 20% is what you're doing in the gym. But a lot of folks don't realize that, and so they're busting their butts in the gym. Just like how I was when I'm in my 20s and 30s, not too much progress to show for it.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of my, motivations for, the Instagram account and posting what's going on with me is, I'd like to, if I can help some, some younger, well, not only younger people, but improve how they feel, improve their health, improve their physical fitness, lose excess body fat, then, that'd be awesome. Like if enable them to avoid making a lot of mistakes and taking so long to learn, to learn more quickly what it took me 20 years to learn. So that's kind of, my, one of my motivators for the stuff I do, on social media.
Yeah. Like I remember a story about Michael Vick. It was like his college roommate talking about how he would just eat like McDonald's and pizza. And he said on Michael Vick, it was like taking steroids. Like he was just getting more and more jacked and ripped. It didn't matter what he ate, he just ate high octane garbage. And he was just yoked. And so I think he's, one of those guys that it doesn't matter what he eats. And obviously he was working out a lot. And when I was playing, rugby back in the day, I could, during the season, I just worked out so much that I could get in very, very good shape. I was very lean, very muscular. But the second I stopped working out, things just started to deteriorate, visibly. So it was something that I had to maintain through a lot of effort. Whereas now I don't. There was, it's interesting. You see a lot of like Pacific Islanders, with like no effort or anything, and they're just absolutely ripped.
Yeah.
They have a higher prevalence of something called the Burley gene, which you can look this up. It's interesting. They've sort of duplicated this in mice and animals. There's actually a company in France that makes cows with Burley gene because it has like a lot more muscle mass. It's like lean muscle mass. And that was obviously, what people sort of wanted in certain markets. But these things are yoked. I mean, it looks like it's cow that's just on, Ronnie Coleman level sort of, so juice. And, but a lot of these guys will have that. And so it's something that keeps you very lean, very muscular. And I played rugby with guys. They just looked like, they were going out for Mr. Universe, and they were like, never been in the gym in my life. I've never once lifted a weight, and so they have that gene. Unfortunately, the rest of us have to work for it. But,
but the Islanders are blessed. Particularly when if they stick to carnivore, because
better.
Not many generations ago it was all like pigs and seafood,
Yeah, exactly.
If they stick to gut, and
people. It used to be back in the day, like I think there was like Captain Cook that like discovered Hawaii. I think his team got hit by cannibals. Maybe Cook himself, but anyway, some of them did. And but yeah, it's carnivore though. I don't know. I guess can't knock it too much.
Yeah, I'm sure it's good for you, but I'm not encouraging it.
But yeah, it's obviously not happening anymore. But yeah, they were just eating a lot of meat, and what plants they did eat. I think that was a minimum of what they were doing. Obviously, not all Islanders have that Burley gene. Not all of them have that, but some of them do, and they have that sort of effortless physique, regardless of what they eat. Sort of like Michael Vick, but it's very telling when you do see normal people like the three of us that do have to work for it, and maybe don't even get as the results that we want to with the hard work. But when you switch over your diet, it makes just such a dramatic difference. And I was able to get quite a good physique and getting very good shape by working very, very hard. But I always ate very meat heavy anyway, and if I was eating just a bunch of garbage, probably wouldn't have had the same results. But now but even then, even with like the little plants and carbs that I was eating, the second I stopped working out, the second I had like an off season sort of stuff, I just started losing my physique and putting on fat. And it was, and that was what I saw, in season, out of season was very different Anthony. And, so it took a lot of effort, but now I don't. Like I work out so much less than I did then, and I have a better physique than I did for most of the time.
We were, Anthony, before you jumped on, Ash and I were talking about that he eats twice a day. So like AM breakfast, doesn't eat. So then you go to work, Asher, don't eat lunch or anything like that, and then come home and have dinner. I think I need to start doing that. I'm going to commit to that, because at the moment I'm sort of having like a small breakfast, then I'm eating lunch, and then I'm eating dinner. And I think I'm eating too much, and probably too much protein versus not enough fat. So I think that's just going to be, and that's also seems so easy. If I'm at work or I'm out and about, I don't have to go and buy anything or find food or anything like that. I think that might work for me. Whereas,
there's another nice benefit to not eating lunch or not, eating your first meal during lunchtime, is you can get in lunch hour workouts.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I do a lot. And, people go on lunch break and eat their lunch, and I'll go hit the gym and, bang out a workout during my lunch hour and get back into work. And so, yeah, I really like that routine, and I like not having to worry about bringing food to the office or, getting food somewhere. It's just so much easier. I eat at home before I leave for work, and then I eat when I get home from work. And then I have, either I can work through lunch or I can work out during lunch. So it's nice.
Yeah, that's for those of you blessed with a lunch hour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry.
That's true.
Yeah, they had a gym at one of the hospitals I worked at, and so that was fine. But that was so busy at that hospital, like it was just good luck ever using it. But at least, as soon as I finished, I would just sort of jet in there and just bust out like a 45-minute hour workout or something like that. And that worked pretty well. But yeah, it's very hit and miss during the day. Like today's nice, you have have a bit more breathing room, but normally it's quite busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you got into sort of the business side of this as well. You have like was it the Primal Wellness tallows and things like that? Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner. So I work with clients and consult with them with regards to nutrition and lifestyle and fitness. And I've been doing that for a number of years. Like the main focus of mine has been with in the mental health field. I've run a mental health clinic for the past since 2015, so it was 7 years,
Awesome.
more or less. And yeah, that's been interesting working with mental health clients. It's certainly been a challenge. So not a challenge in having clients make a lot of progress and improve their symptoms, but it's been a challenge explaining and bringing up the topic of nutrition to somebody when they come in to a mental health clinic and expect to see a psychiatrist and get medications or meet with a therapist and do psychotherapy. So yeah, I get all kinds of reactions, and I'm sure most people think I'm nuts. And I guess I'm lucky because I'm I'm kind of persistent and I'm kind of stubborn, and I know that the diet works very, very well and is very effective at improving mental health conditions. I know that from personal experience. I know that from working with many clients who have made tremendous progress. And so it's worth it to me to have to, get through all the initial skepticism and doubts. And like some clients will, this is mental health. So some clients will freak out, like, what are you talking to me about food for? I came here to see a psychiatrist or therapist. Like, why did my doctor refer me to you guys? And but
because he hates you.
Yeah,
because he wants you to have a heart attack.
but it's in the end, it's worth it, because I do end up convincing a percentage of them to clean up their diet and to improve their diet. And like I said, the ones that do it experience phenomenal improvements in their mental health issues, in depression, anxiety, panic disorder, ADHD. And even what's most interesting is seeing the progress that people make. People who have been through traumas, people with PTSD, people who have been through horrific PTSD type incidents, and to see them, and most of these people have tried everything. They've tried therapy, they've taken medications, nothing's worked. They're still dealing with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, et cetera, et cetera. And we have them clean up their diet and start eating well, and lo and behold, in only a matter of a couple of months, usually a month and a half, 2 months, oh my gosh, like I'm not having panic attacks anymore, or I'm like, my anxiety levels are so much lower now. I'm not depressed anymore. Why? I actually feel happy now. And so it's worth that initial shock that people have when I start talking to them about diet. But yeah, so that's one of the things that I'm doing. The other thing, as you mentioned, so I started up a business of tallow-based soaps and skincare products a few months ago. It's called Spearhead Soaps.
Nice.
And yeah, and so I mean, part of my nutritional journey to paleo and the keto and the carnivore has been to try and remove toxins and toxic ingredients and substances from myself. And obviously the main way you do that is through diet, but also a major way of exposing yourself to toxins and harmful chemicals is through your skin. Whether it's through lotions or soap or sunscreen. And a few years ago, I started using natural tallow soaps, and found that, one, they're a lot better on my skin than industrial commercial soaps were. My skin was much less dried out. I felt a lot better. I felt a lot cleaner, and you just start feeling a lot better also when you're not consuming those chemicals. And so how it started is I don't like to throw stuff away. And, I eat meat a lot. I'm making a lot of like briskets and chuck roast. So I have a ton of tallow. And so I have tallow and I can only eat so much of it. Like my family, none of my family members are carnivore. So I was storing the stuff in my freezer, and, at a certain point, like half of my freezer is like bags of frozen tallow. I'm like, what am I going to do with this? Like, I don't want to throw this away, but it kept building and building in my freezer. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll like learn how to make soap, and maybe I can make my own tallow, and then then I don't want to have to wait, let it go to waste. And I did that, and I'm like, wow, this stuff's really good. Like I'm really enjoying these tallow soaps, and they feel great. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll put up a website and see maybe some other carnivores and other people might want to buy some. And so yeah, I did that a couple months ago. And yeah, it's been going really well. People who have been ordering and using the products seem to really like them. And I expanded, like people would ask me, oh, do you have a tallow such and such, and so like, oh, well, let me look into that and see if I can make something like that. So like now I have a range of tallow products, everything from body lotion to face cream to anti-aging face mask to lip balm to shampoo bar now. So it's a lot of different things that I kind of developed, and yeah, I mean, they work great. You feel great using them, and you're not ingesting all these harsh and toxic chemicals in your body, which aren't good for us.
Yeah, definitely. It's great that you're able to incorporate this in your work with mental health as well.
Yeah.
That's something, especially now that Professor Palmer from Harvard came out with his book Brain Energy. That's something that's becoming much more accepted in the mainstream, showing that you can use even just a ketogenic diet, obviously needing a lot of meat and fat if you're going to be doing that properly, to reverse and to alleviate even schizophrenia and OCD, bipolar. Certainly helps with PTSD, depression, and anxiety. And even there have even been studies looking at that Professor Palmer mentions in his book, studies looking at people coming off of alcohol dependency and withdrawing, and they found that they actually had their withdrawal process was much easier. And not everyone knows this, but withdrawing from alcohol can actually be quite dangerous. You can get seizures, and you can die. It's very serious if you're one of these people that are seriously addicted to alcohol. So you give benzodiazepines to sort of level them out as they're going through that, and they get delirium tremens and the DTs, and so you have to give sort of some benzodiazepines to sort of get them through that, so they don't have seizures. And they found that the people that were on keto, that were alcohol detoxing, they had far less cravings. It was far easier for them to abstain from alcohol, and they actually required less benzodiazepines to keep their DTs under control. So it's objective as well as subjective. They required less medications to get them through the withdrawal process. So I thought that was very interesting. And you could even like send out a flyer to some of these people, like, hey, you're coming to me, this is my approach, you're going to be, we address
Fair
this
warning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we address this with the metabolic, you go like metabolic therapy, because that's what Dr. Palmer does, addressing different metabolic issues. And certainly diet is very, very important to that. That's the majority of that. And just let them know, and then sort of cite a lot of his work. It might save you some arguments when they come in.
That's not a bad idea. But yeah, it's interesting what you mentioned about alcohol dependency and with withdrawals and so forth. And a lot of these things, I've experienced personally, a lot of the health improvements, and the main reason for me becoming interested in diet, nutrition, and changing my diet, and starting to make dietary changes were, like I said, health issues and problems that I had encountered. And the main issues that were bothering me and hindering my functioning were anxiety and panic disorder and depression, which I had had anxiety and depression since childhood. And during my 30s, I started developing panic attacks, started having panic attacks, and that, over a significant amount of time became more and more frequent and more severe, until when they, got to their worst, I was having them on a daily basis, was unable to work. I was having them at work while I was talking to clients or talking to coworkers. And so I ended up having to quit my job at the time, which sucked because it was a job I really, really liked. And I couldn't work for a year and a half or so. And I mean, I was a train wreck. And I'd been in psychotherapy for 4 years every week. And, my therapist was great, super smart. I enjoyed the therapy as much as one can enjoy therapy, but it didn't help at all with my symptoms, didn't help alleviate my depression, my anxiety, didn't help stop the panic attacks. It's recommended that I go on anti-anxiety meds just because. But that, I think, fortunately for me, that was something that freaked me out. I didn't want to go near any psych meds. I didn't want any chemicals like affecting my brain at all. And so then, out of desperation, I went online and like, oh, there's got to be something else. I have to live like this for the rest of my life and not be able to support my family and not be able to work. And so I came across a few, I think a book and a few articles that mentioned that some people have sensitivities to sugar and to some other, processed foods that can exacerbate anxiety. And I was, so desperate at the time, I was willing to try anything. So, okay, let me try this. Let me change up my diet. And to my pleasant surprise, that totally, completely got rid of the anxiety, stopped the panic attacks, got rid of the depression. I was in my, I think, late 30s at the time, and first felt to be like happy and content and not depressed, and to not be experiencing anxiety. And so throughout, it was interesting. And so throughout, those decades, I, like a lot of people, I didn't agree to take any psych meds, but I tended to self-medicate with alcohol, and, drank too much, drank excessively at times. I was you could probably call me a high functioning alcoholic. I did a lot of stupid stuff, a lot of regrettable stuff, and stuff I'm certainly not proud of. And I was always the person, because that was basically the only time when I felt, no anxiety, and where I didn't feel depressed, when I felt like calm and relaxed and like content, was after I'd had a few drinks. So I was always the type of person, like, if I'm in a social situation, people have a few drinks, of course I'm gonna have, I'm gonna drink. And so fast forward to when I started Carnivore, one of the interesting things that happened to me was that I stopped craving alcohol, and I stopped, like, even though I wasn't, when I was keto, and so when I went paleo and then keto, I felt good. I wasn't, I didn't have any anxiety anymore or depression. But I still like to drink, in social situations and so forth. After I went carnivore, I stopped craving alcohol, and there were many times where we'd be out with friends, having dinner or whatever, and everybody be ordering cocktails and drinks, and I'd get a glass of Pellegrino and be fine. Like, I don't feel like drinking. And that would never have happened to me before. If there was any excuse to have a drink, or have some drinks with friends or whatnot, I'd be all over it. But since going carnivore, so I think it does something interesting to your brain, to your cravings for addictive substances. It really lowers them. So I think that's has something to do with how alcoholics are able to wean off and alcohol a lot easier, and not go through as extreme withdrawals, and not have as extreme because it really, at least for me, got rid of the cravings. And I still don't. I mean, I totally quit drinking in this past September, and yeah, I mean, I feel great. I feel fine. I don't feel like drinking. I don't crave alcohol anymore. So it's interesting, experiencing that. But yeah, I'm sure there's definitely something into it. And I think it probably holds true for any kind of addiction, whether it's, drugs, methamphetamines, or heroin. I would, posit that any addict is going to have a much easier time breaking their addiction if they're strict carnivore.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And that seems to be what the literature is showing. It seems to be what people are doing. And there's also something to be said that if you are healthy and your body and your brain are working better and you're healthier and you're happier, you don't necessarily need to use drugs and alcohol to get those same sort of feelings and to make yourself feel happy and normal. And you already feel good, you already feel normal, and you don't need a crutch to bring you forward. There's a lot of reasons people use drugs and alcohol, of course, but that's a major one. And so hopefully that's something that people can find, that they can optimize their health and their mental health, and that they won't need those sorts of substances.
Yeah. Do you think in terms of sort of the mechanism that's going on, obviously it makes you feel better and you're more happy generally, but is there something to do with producing more ketones or something kind of like biochemically, Anthony, do you think that's going on that's making it easier to break addictions?
I haven't looked into it to a great extent. Dr. Palmer's book is more has more references to that. One of the things that, just for the alcohol withdrawal sort of things, you're going to be having a seizure potential there. Just being in ketosis suppresses seizures, or protects your brain from that. It raises your threshold for getting seizures. So that right there, that's a clear physiological benefit of being in ketosis, is that you're going to be protected from seizures, so you won't need as much medication to keep you out of that. Your mental health is going to be better in a lot of ways as well. Your brain is going to work better because it has its primary energy source, ketones are, and it also helps your mitochondria function better, which has a lot of benefits in your brain and in your body. And it seems to be that there's at least a strong connection between dysregulation and dysfunction of your mitochondria in your brain and substance abuse and mental disorders. So getting into ketosis and having your mitochondria work better and other systems work better seems to help that. And I think long term, that's certainly going to help, because after a few months, your mitochondria, they completely turn over, and then you have 3-4 times as many, and they work better. So your brain and body just work phenomenally better at that point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I also think that feeling satiated and being, giving your body all the nutrients it needs, I think that should have generally calms people down and helps them make better decisions as well. Like you see a lot of people who turn to alcohol, for example, they're often overweight, and it's kind of a sign that they're basically putting anything they can inside their body to try and get some sort of nutrition. And
that too. We're overfed and undernourished.
Yeah.
Right. And if you have to eat a whole bunch of things just to get what little nutrients are in there, and you're bringing in a lot of carbs and calories with that, you're gonna put on excess adipose tissue, and you're only going to barely get enough nutrients. Sometimes you're not even going to get enough nutrients. Most people take supplements, most people take vitamins, most people take things because their food is deficient in it, and yet they're overweight, right? So they're eating more calories than they need, they're getting more energy than they need, but they're not getting enough nutrients, and that's very telling, and it means that you're not eating the right thing. It's very clear. It's very straightforward. If you're not getting, adequate nutrition, then you're eating the wrong thing, especially if you have to eat such an abundance of energy to still not get enough nutrients.
Yeah,
then you're really not eating the right thing.
Yeah. And that kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier. I don't eat a lot of food in terms of quantity,
It's
like,
really not that much.
yeah, 22 ounces of food per day is about what I eat. And, I'm not huge. I'm 5'9", I'm 135, 137 pounds. But yeah, when you eat right, you don't need to eat a
Yeah.
large volume of food or a ton of calories. If it's nutrient dense, you're getting all those micronutrients, all the fatty acids, the amino acids that your body needs without all those excess calories and carbohydrates. So yeah, your body can be very efficient and very efficiently utilize small quantities of food if they are very nutrient dense.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, I tell people that, when you're eating high density nutrition, you don't need to eat as much or as often. And I find that as well. I'm around 230, 6'3", and I don't honestly eat all that much, probably like 2 pounds of like fatty ribeye a day. If I'm working out, then that'll easily double, and I'll probably have to eat double that and work out to maintain like 240, which is what I generally like to be at if I'm working out. And but just sort of normal sedentary life and just maintaining where I am, yeah, probably like 2 pounds a day fatty meat. It's not that much, I mean, it's like old ladies eating more than me, but they're coming from a nutrient deficit, and I think their bodies just are trying to sort of recover and regrow and rebuild, where I'm sort of at a steady state at this point. Yeah,
Totally. All right, guys. Thank you very much. That was a great chat. And Asher, where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram at Primal Wellness. I've got a YouTube channel. Where else? TikTok. You can all search Primal Wellness on all those platforms, and the tallow soaps, Spearhead Soap. Website spearheadsoaps.com, and on Instagram Spearhead Soap. And yeah, those are the main areas.
awesome,
cool. Great. Well, thank you so much, Asher. Really appreciate it. And as always, thanks, Dr. Chaffee.
Yeah, no, thank you both. Yeah, it was great to see you guys.
Thank you guys. It was great talking to you.